Hey guys, this is Jared, joined with Andrew here today on Boat Outfitters live stream. Today we're going to talk about a pretty popular product that we've seen a lot of momentum moving forward over the past couple years for us, and it is Coosa board. So specifically, Coosa Composite makes a panel called the Blue Water 26. And today's episode we're going to go through use cases, pros and cons, and really, the first question is, why do we carry it? You added it to the site a couple years back. What was the decision to add it?
So it was one of the first parts I added to the website after we went live. So we went live and it wasn't on Boat Outfitters. And the reason we added it is because, of course, we sell King Starboard. We've talked about that plenty. We found that people were going online and they were buying our cut-to-size King Starboard and they were trying to use it for decking materials specifically. And when we heard that, we kind of went, hey, really don't recommend it for that for a number of reasons. One, it's expensive and heavy, but really from a rigidity, we really don't recommend high-density polyethylene King Starboard for decks. And I got tired of kind of turning away customers, people calling saying, hey, I'd like to buy this, and us saying we don't really have anything. So we started talking to the different boat builder partners going, hey, what are you guys using for your decks, for your transoms? And some of them still use plywood, but a lot of them started mentioning this Coosa board.
Okay.
Right? So Coosa board's really a material for decks, transoms, and other structural component parts of the boat.
Right, so what is it, right?
Yeah.
So, Starboard, like you mentioned, is high-density polyethylene. What is Coosa?
Yeah, so, I got it written down. It's polyurethane foam. Now, it is reinforced with woven roving inside of it. So you can see it a little bit easier on here. And we'll switch back over to some detailed pictures of it where you can see the woven roving in the inside of it. But really, it's just
Foam?
Rigid foam,
reinforced with fiberglass, right?
Yeah, so it's really what it is from a standpoint of what you need to know about it.
Awesome. So, one of the things that we right now, as I mentioned earlier, we only carry the Blue Water 26 on the site. So there's a couple different options out there that Coosa Composites offers, and Blue Water 26 being one, and the nautical panels being another one. So, right now we don't have the nautical panels. Really the main difference, as Andrew mentioned, the fiberglass woven roving is actually in the Blue Water 26, where it's not in the nautical 20. So let's kind of hash through some pros and cons of what that means.
Yeah, so I think it's really, from what I understand, a structural rigidity and structural integrity question. And when we were first adding the Blue Water 26, there was some conversation on, do we also add the nautical? And I struggled to find a lot of use cases that you couldn't use some material that we already had. For example, we talked a little bit about expanded PVC. This is a non-structural kind of substrate material. We use it for a lot of the back of tackle boxes, or substrate if it's non-structural. Think like an armrest substrate, where you don't need to have the structural integrity of what it's sitting on. So we've looked at Blue Water 26 and the nautical and decided, hey, really, Blue Water, for all intensive purposes, is all we need to have.
Yeah, so one of the things that we'll kind of cover here is, Andrew mentioned going through and using the expanded PVC. That can be used as well as like a substrate for even seats, right? If you have the nice like a structure underneath it, you don't want it spanning a certain amount of area. But
yeah, if the material isn't providing the structural support, right? This not unlike Starboard. Now this is not super structurally rigid. Just like Starboard, but it's a lot less expensive and a lot lighter, right? So this has, two of those negatives solved, but it doesn't provide the structural support. So like you're saying, if you had metal substructures underneath this,
like
and this was just a filler piece,
right?
Then maybe this is fine. And maybe in that case, the nautical would be fine as well, but we already had this. So really, from a product offering standpoint, the Blue Water 26 is what we've prioritized and what we've made available on the website.
Yeah, so, kind of going in through, the difference between, we really broke it down that it's like a 30% less is what the difference is in cost,
sure.
Right? So, we would recommend the Blue Water 26 is kind of the one thing that we have on the site that is more rigid, so easier to use.
Sure.
Next point is, why is it better than plywood? If you're using this to replace plywood in the boat, why would you go with this over plywood?
Well, you wouldn't always. first of all, right? I mean, it is a lot more expensive than plywood. I mean, what did we say? A sheet of plywood, we have it written down here, is in the area of $100. A little less than $100, you can get a sheet of marine grade plywood, where a sheet of the similar size Coosa might be 3 times that, right? So it is quite a bit more expensive, which doesn't always make sense. If this is a boat that you intended to sell soon, or it's not a boat that you mind having to replace your flooring or your transom regularly, plywood is a totally acceptable option. But for those of you who want to invest in never having to redo the deck again, never having to redo the transom again, Coosa's better because it has 0 water absorption.
Right.
Because of that, you have 0 issues with rot. Right. So unlike plywood, of course, which that is a major issue. You also don't have any issues with mildew, insects, things like that kind of exacerbate the speed of the rot. And it's also quite a bit lighter. So it's 40 to 60% lighter than plywood. So you've got a lighter material that's at least, if not quite a bit more structural, as far as rigidity,
right.
And cannot rot, so you don't have any of that mildew issues as far as being replaced.
So all of the pros, the cons, of course, is that it's more expensive.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
Time frame that you're doing it, if you have to replace a deck on a boat 3 times over the course of the lifetime that you have the boat,
then it doesn't cost more.
It doesn't cost more.
Right, that's absolutely true. Yep.
So, the next area we're going to get into is kind of talking about working with the material, and, if you are going in and replacing plywood, what are kind of the do's and don'ts. First one, of course, being what should be used. So if you're going in with plywood, again, the Blue Water 26 is recommended, that it's lighter, equally if not more rigid. So that's one of the things that we would say. The nautical, again, not to revisit that, it's really the material or the area that it's spanning from a structural standpoint, right? So there's a lot of things that are available, and I'll actually switch over here to the screen. Coosa's done a really good job going through and doing testing on this is what this is, and so that's going to be available. We're going to make it available as well in the description, but I'll switch over real quick and kind of show you some of that test information that's available. So this is just pulled down from the site. We're going to link to it in the description as well, and again, it goes through each different panel type so you know what to use. Let me flip back over here to us. One of the things that Coosa always recommends, and we recommend, what thickness do I use? Do I need to encapsulate it in fiberglass? Those are some of the questions that we'll go through. What we always tell people is that if you're replacing something, a lot of the boat builders, if not all of them, pay really smart people that know a lot more than us about what needs to go where in the boat. So we recommend going back in with the same thickness of Coosa as you have plywood in the boat, and also encapsulating it if it's encapsulated on both sides. If it was screwed in.
Yeah, same thickness, installed the same way. Really, is the gist of it, right? Because you're operating under a premise that this is stronger than the same thickness of plywood,
right,
which we feel very confident, and the spec sheets prove out. Right. So that's the idea. The idea is, we're not going to, we wouldn't consult on how to rebuild your boat, right? And make a suggestion on maybe you can get away with 3/4 Coosa if it was 1-inch plywood. That's a slippery slope that we don't really feel we're qualified to answer. And generally, Coosa Composites doesn't want to answer, although you can call them and ask them some of those questions. They're great people over there. But generally, the advice is 1-to-1,
right,
and you're better. Absolutely. And you'll never have to do it again.
And so from a replacement standpoint, that really answers the question of, how do I, install it? What thickness should I use? What type of fiberglass? How should I glass it in from both sides from a finishing? It doesn't necessarily need to be finished. That's something that you can see us kind of keep dusting our hands off after we work with it. The reason for that is just like, fiberglass that comes, in resin or, strings, you're able to get it into your skin, and it does start to become itchy.
Well, it does need to be finished in so much that it's not attractive, right? I mean, you can see this, right? I mean, you've got some spray paint here, and it's not good looking, some scratches, the way it was extruded. It's not a finished final material, so it generally wants to be painted. The other issue you do have is you have some UV stabilization issues, which
Absolutely.
I know we'll hit on in the future. So this is not it's not UV stabilized from a standpoint of it will change color on you if you put it out in the sun. You have 0 issues with structural integrity breakdown or anything like that, but you do have discoloration. So you wouldn't want to take this, screw it to your pontoon floor, and now you have a new floor, and walk away. 1, because you'd get little tiny strands of fiberglass in your feet, and it would be horrible. 2, it would look bad. 3, it would change colors. So it is still a coring material, not a finished, front end. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So, one of the things that we talked about prior to the segment is that, we are not experts. We sell this material. We try to give you as much information as we can. If we're talking a little bit more about installing, there's actually a couple really good partners we've worked with that are, on YouTube as well that we want to recommend that, we've worked with on a couple different projects. One being Tiny Boat Nation. Send a lot of decking stuff for a lot of the smaller boats that he's building different access hatches and decks on. Also the Born Again Boating, use it to do a transom replacement. It's actually seen a lot of use. So, we're not the experts. Those are the guys that have actually lived it and done it.
Well, we'll link to their videos in the description. You should check those out because those are great demonstrations on how to use the material. There's also one that we've done with ShipShape TV that shows John Graviscus replacing a transom. So we'll put that video in the description as well, so you can see more examples of actually installing the material.
Perfect. So that really kind of covers how do I install it. Last section is.
We talked of course about. How you install or how you select what thickness you need when you're going for a one-to-one replacement.
Right.
But if you say you were using this for a new project that you wanted to create, how you make that decision. Did we talk about that at all?
We didn't really at all, and that's my recommendation, of course, would be to review the test information and going back in, look to what you said, that this, if you could do it with plywood, this is stronger than plywood. Right?
Yeah. I think that's the gist. I mean, check out the structural integrity measures. I know for this stuff's, I don't know, beyond me to a degree, right? And some people are going to be able to diagnose that. If you're an engineer, certainly. Other people, I think a little bit of the sanity check of use it like you would use plywood, and it's better. So okay.
All right, awesome. So, really the next part we'd like to go into is to kind of cover, what we make available on our site. So I'm actually going to switch back over here to our site and pull up our Coosa page. So you can see here, this kind of shows the videos are linked here for the ShipShape episodes.
Sure.
For us, we offer it from 1/2 inch all the way to 1.5 inches. So this is available. All of these thicknesses are in stock. As we mentioned, we've seen a lot of increased popularity, and what we've done as part of that is, beginning of this year, we doubled our on-hand inventory, and we, ran out, so we quadrupled our on-hand inventory, and so we're making sure that we keep this in stock for you. Again, anywhere from 1/2 inch all the way up to 1.5 inches. One of the things to mention as a part of that is, let's say you need 2 inch. This can be laminated together similar to plywood, right? So you would go in with 2 pieces of 1 inch or vice versa. If you needed 1.5 inches and we only had 3/4 in stock at the time and you had a rush project, you can laminate this together to get your desired thickness.
In some cases, that might even be a more cost-effective way to do it, right? Maybe it's a smaller piece that need to be thicker. It might be more cost-effective to get 2 pieces of 1 inch or a piece of 1 inch and a piece of 1/2 inch and get to your 1.5 inch, more cost-effective. Of course, you add some labor to it, but that's always an option.
Yeah. So, with this, we offer these thicknesses, 1/2 inch all the way up to 1.5 inches, and the sizes are important as well. You'll see a lot of these sizes. This is a full sheet similar to the size of a sheet of plywood, 4x8. We offer a 1/2 sheet. Those would have to ship freight, right? So, they're on hand. We ship them out within 1 to 3 days.
Didn't we start shipping 1/2 sheets UPS?
I believe they're all still shipped via freight.
Okay, we'll check that and confirm that in the comments.
But as a part of that, we do offer this 3rd sheet size, and the reason we offer that 3rd sheet size is specifically that it can go ground, right? Okay. So, if you're all the way across the nation and you only need a certain size, it can make sense to buy 2 or 3 of the 3rd sheet panels, and you'll be able to use FedEx Ground to get it to you if it needs to get there quicker, or alternatively, if you don't want to pay the freight price for a full pallet. So, we offer it in the multiple thicknesses, the multiple size, and again, we can get it out the door to you in a relatively short time. Again, it ships within 3 days.
The other thing to mention too is that we are able to custom cut the size inside of that, right? So this is the minimum that we make you purchase these different groups, and it's really a full sheet, 1/2 sheet, and 1/3 of a sheet. But if, say, inside that 1/3 of a sheet, you didn't have the tools that you needed to be able to cut this down, you wanted it a unique this in an eighth by that in an eighth measurement, we can absolutely do that for you. Give us a call, we'll get you a price for just a little bit of router time, make you a little blank here, and cut it down to the size. And we can even send you the scrap, of course, because you will have bought the size that you bought to be able to cut inside of it. So that's also an option.
That's a really good point, kind of segueing to our next section. Is, we talked about how to install, looking at a couple different videos from other people that have worked with it. What do you use to cut Coosa? We cut it downstairs on a table saw. Any intricate patterns are cut on our router, but just a standard table saw, standard tools you'd use for woodworking, or what you'd use to cut and fabricate that piece to get.
They say carbide bits are best, but yeah, I mean standard woodworking tools work fine. It is a little bit nasty to cut. It's probably over dramatic, but it's like working with fiberglass from a standpoint of you probably want to wear a dust mask, and you might want to use gloves because you can get little fiberglass splinters, but it cuts fine. That's
You're not a man's man. That's what you want to do, right?
That's me. Nice.
All right, so I'm going to switch back over to the screen again. I think now is a good time to kind of show, which is the last thing, is the adhesives, right? So Coosa also, and we're going to share this in the description below, what adhesives are recommended. So they've done a good job of putting together some literature of, here's the test data, here's the adhesives we recommend, and then, of course, some of the different frequently asked questions, which we've kind of included in the segment here today.
So we're going to link to this in the description as well, so that we have that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, again, it's available here on our site. If you guys have any questions, give us a call. One of the things that we haven't discussed that we want to get into, and this is kind of, we don't want to start a war, but we want to get any feedback we can from you as customers of ours, and if there's anything else. What we see on the screen here is Nitacor, right?
Sure.
And as I started doing some research for this segment, we went through and looked at the different options out there, and really there's probably a ton more, and we're not covering them. So please give us some feedback.
Yeah, let us know what we missed.
Absolutely. So you've got plywood, marine grade plywood, which is used as a coring material for boats. You've got Coosa, which we've covered pretty extensively here, and then Nitacor, and we're going to briefly cover this. This is an option. Same way that we talked about.
It's an option for decks, right?
Correct.
Not for transom. So transom, you would not want to use that because of the way that it's constructed, which I think you were going to get into. Sorry, I cut you off there.
So this is kind of a honeycomb material within the middle here, sandwiched between two finished pieces of fiberglass on the top. So actually the boat that I had redone a couple years back actually put Nitacor into the deck. I'm super pumped up about it at the time. The fact that it was no wood construction, I was
super
really
light,
happy.
right?
Super light. I mean, same thing, right? The cons is it's more expensive than plywood. The pros are that it's lighter. It's relatively the same cost as Coosa, right around $300 for a 4x8 sheet for the finished style, and really has that structural integrity. Everything that you have, I would say that the cons versus the pro for me was that I had a really hard time with screw retention in this. I actually had one of those swing back cooler chairs behind the console, and I'm a big boy, so sitting on there, over time the screws that were down in there just lagged into the actual material, started pulling out, and the seat started coming out. And the only way I was able to find that fix it was I was able to open up that screw hole a little bit and then take out some of this honeycomb material. And by removing that honeycomb material, I was able to pour in like a 2-part epoxy to fill this like a solid puck that I had then dropped the lag bolt upside down more as a machine screw, and then put that cooler seat back on top to make it something else there. And similar, Coosa boards.
And so you didn't have access to the underneath side of your deck, I'd imagine.
I did not.
Right, because if you did,
I
could
through bolt with larger washers,
bolt,
exactly.
Yeah, backing plate maybe, yeah.
So, that wasn't an option for me. It's kind of an afterthought. I had a guy help redo the boat for me, and then after that I started seeing the cooler come out, and I had to figure a way to solve it. So, that was an option. Coosa, again, pros versus cons. Screw retention for Coosa is probably more so than Nitacor.
Oh, I would say way better than Nitacor. Yeah.
But absolutely not as good as plywood.
Not as good as plywood. Not as
right.
good as
So
plywood.
one of the things we offer, you'll see these T-nuts here on the site. And these T-nuts are what we're recommending when you're going through and through bolting, so it gives the screw something to bite into the material. Mm-hmm. Beyond that, you may want to, have like a larger washer or a larger T-nut to help grab a little bit more of that board and spread out that force where that through bolt's going through the material.
And definitely through bolt when you can versus tap into and screw. Yeah, so that would be my recommendation. But yeah, I would say that there's almost no screw retention, very minimal screw retention.
I mean, this is just soft, like very soft material.
It has a ton of structural integrity in one direction, right? So I mean, and again, we're not experts. I'd love for someone to come in and educate us even a little bit on Nitacord. Maybe we need to make it available on the line, online. Maybe someone can mention stuff more down in the comments. But my understanding is from the structural integrity in the direction that the honeycomb runs is super high, potentially even higher than Coosa board. But it has really no structural integrity, like hanging, like sheer, this direction, right? If you were tapping into the honeycomb or anything like that.
So you asked and they answered.
Let's see.
It looks like we've got a couple comments from people here. So just joined the live. Can I use the Coosa for holes below the water line? So holes, I would imagine.
Absolutely.
You're talking about
for
like
a transom. Yeah, I mean, if you were, you use it for your transom and it's below the water line, right?
Absolutely.
But I mean, it needs to be glassed over like
Correct.
your transom would have been, or it needs to be installed in the same fashion. So yeah, I mean, it's water resistant. And again, this starts to border a little bit on what I'm comfortable giving as far as advice.
Sure.
I would say you can use it in any capacity that your plywood was used, installed in that same capacity.
Laminated with fiberglass.
Right, laminated with fiberglass.
So, for the Coosa, as Andrew mentioned, there's actually a really cool article on Coosa on The Whole Truth. And they went through and a guy actually took and cut a small piece of Coosa, similar to the size sample we have here, and he put it in a coffee can full of water. And he weighed it before it went in.
Yeah.
I think it was like 5 years later, he opened it up and took it out and weighed that same piece of Coosa. I think it was the exact same weight. So that shows that the retention's not there,
right.
But from an application standpoint,
That's
you want to
cool.
make sure you laminate it.
We need
like
to find
the
that
holder
thread
did.
if we can find it and post
it
it
Yep.
on the thing. Yeah, that'd be cool.
All right, next question. Can Coosa be bent at hard angles or formed or contoured? No.
No, not at all.
So you can see, one of the things earlier, we got a note slipped to us. You can see this is super rigid, right? I mean, there's no bend or flex to it whatsoever. If anything, I think if you put enough force on it, it would just splinter and break like a piece of foam, right?
Yeah, you'd have to really try to break it. As you hear I don't know if you can hear in the factory, it's a birthday downstairs. They're singing. Hopefully you guys can hear it.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. But no, it can't. Even if you heat bend it, you have, you're not going to be able to form it like you could form, say, acrylic or PVC.
Awesome. So another question here is, I have purchased numerous items from your company and always been 100% satisfied. Just to let you know. Thank you for coming up with new ideas.
You. That's awesome.
Kenneth, you rock, man.
You're the man.
Appreciate
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
your business. Got another question here from Matt. Can you mill grooves into the starboard or lap joint Coosa? Okay, so grooves into the Coosa or use a lap joint. So, I would imagine you can use a lap joint, but we've actually done something different here at Boat Outfitters, and we can actually switch over and show them how we're able to join two pieces to make a larger piece.
Correct. Yeah. So and that is a common thing. It's actually a good segue into another deal. It's not uncommon on a bigger boat for your transom to be larger than the 4x8 sheet size, that Coosa comes in. So in that case, what we've done with other customers is split that transom in half, and you could see it right there. Give me some Control Plus, zoom in a little bit so I can see what. There we go. So
this is a swim platform. That we did for a customer.
Perfect. So we could do the same thing with the transom, right? But you can see what we did.
Flip the swim platform upside down. There's your transom.
Yeah. Where we've done some puzzle piece joints, so that the strength of those two, is certainly a lot stronger than it would be with just a lap joint. Of course, they still fasten these together, and when a transom, generally you're glassing over that. So there's a lot holding that together, but that additional puzzle piece is really great, and it's good for alignment and installation. So we do. I mentioned, hey, we can do custom cut sizes. We can go to a whole different level and do custom cut swim platforms or custom cut transoms, and we do that where people send in, maybe it's a plywood or maybe it's a what's that, like thin wood, like you would use for templating countertops.
Yeah, like just basically like shims, shims glued together to make the shape of the actual transom.
We take it, we digitize, and we cut the full finished piece for you so that it's ready to set in place in glass or screw or whatever you're doing.
And again, a really good example of that is that Born Again boating. You know, we sent them a piece that not necessarily.
Did we? I thought we sent them full sheets.
It was a full sheet. So I take that back. It was the ship shape.
Ship shape is a better episode, yeah.
So ship shape shows us going and digitizing it and getting it everything so it's just able to be dropped in place and installed.
Born Again is a better video for what you would do if you're starting with a full sheet.
Here's
check
a sheet.
That out.
Go from start. Yep. All right, so that's actually a good segue here as we've got through a couple of different comments. We can step back in here and let me zoom back out.
Real quick, before we look at some others, I don't think we touched on the paints. Did we touch on which paints you can use?
We didn't. No, let's go back here.
Because painting is a common thing. Again, you would want to finish it. So if you're putting it down and you were painting it, what were the types of paints you could use? I'm trying to find it on my notes. There were specific kinds.
Laminate or paint Coosa. You can paint with a polyurethane or epoxy paint.
Or epoxy.
You can laminate an appropriate adhesive for bonding and laminating to Coosa. You know, the reason that Andrew mentioned earlier is that, you know, from a finishing standpoint, it's not soft to touch. You see us keep wiping our hands here, but also for the UV stabilization as well.
For sure.
So, you know, here on the product page, we actually have a product we have here that's Tough Coat. So, you know, somebody that maybe is doing a pontoon deck and they don't need a glass in, they're just replacing the pontoon deck on the boat, they can roll this Tough Coat over the top of it.
Maybe there's just carpet, right? The carpet, of course, is non-structural, right? You don't need to install carpet just because there was carpet. Sure. You know, so you put this down and maybe you paint it, or maybe you carpet over it, right? That's another option.
Yep. So, you know, going back here, we kind of got through, you know, another option, which is Nidacor, which, again, you know, we're not opposed to carrying anything at Boat Outfitter.
Yeah, let us know why we should add it.
We want to be your one-stop shop. If you guys feel like this is something that we need to add as complimentary to Coosa, we'd love to do it for you. So, you know, keeping on this screen, the next area, I feel like we've got through most of the points here. You know, this is really showing and demonstrating what we here can do, right? So, you know, we saw the swim platform. Likewise, here's a transom with all the different angles. You know, let's get into some really cool stuff here. This is actually a customer that made a carbon fiber lightweight gun stock, and Coosa was the structural support for it. So you can see where he's gone through and pieced, you know, smaller pieces of Coosa together to make this stock, and super cool. Here's the finished piece. Right, so you can see this is where he started for structure, and then he's used carbon fiber to lay over the top of that to make an awesome gun stock.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, this is just a super lightweight, highly rigid, you know, piece of composite that you could really use for anything. So he'll show you some other cool examples.
Yeah, this is. I'll swing it back over to you. You were actually the person that helped on this project.
Yeah, this was my project. Yeah, this is a guy who was outfitting storage space to optimize the usability in his Land Rover. So he's going off-road, and we built a variety of different storage bins. He had an area there that was a pull-out refrigerator. In the back, you can see there was a freshwater tank that we needed to provide access for. So we built this whole thing. Now, he took this whole thing and he went and had it rhino lined. So he took and you know, had it sprayed. We actually, one of the gotchas at the end of it, and so there we go, is he did have to bring it back, and we had to open up some of the holes because once you rhino lined it, added some thickness, so some of those latches didn't fit. We got it working, and it was an awesome finished part. But you could see that this is a kind of a really cool setup, and again, very lightweight, very rigid, something that he could certainly go back and climb on, you know, and not have to worry like Starboard, where in some cases, if you're doing too much, you know, really large furniture out of Starboard, you have to start really worrying about sagging, you know, and flexing of the material. So this was really cool. This is a part that I was, you know, excited to work on.
You know, and to that point, and I've included this in the folder as well, you know, this is actually just your standard trailer, right? So, you know, you can see the area where it's plywood, it's rotted out. So if I go back here to the photo, the customer here has gone in and just basically removed the plywood that was rotted where he had a hole prior, and come in and put a piece of Coosa. He's not going to have to worry about replacing this ever again.
Absolutely.
Right? And here's a case where I don't know that this guy's refinishing this, right? It's a trailer. You're usually in it with shoes on. I don't see any carpet in the prior application here, maybe.
Well, like I said, it's not structural, right? Not covering it is not going to make it break down on you. It's just going to make it look kind of green. It kind of gets a green tint, you know, which isn't really aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah, so, you know, walking through some different applications here for boats, right? You can see here, this is a bulkhead where they've gone through and used Coosa to establish a bulkhead in the boat. Similar here. And these are all just customer photos that we've gotten. People
you can see all of these. They're on the reviews section. These are customer supplied.
This looks like it's like a bulkhead / firewall, and I think as you go later on, you can see where it looks like a steering arm and possibly a motor. Again, talking about stuff I maybe don't know.
Yeah, sure.
Ask the customer. So, really cool stuff. You can see, again, a lot of uses for coring material down in the hull of boats. This was the piece that was there before, right?
That's cool.
Again, one time you're never going to have to do that, and here's the finished piece, right? You can see here at the front. So that's a pretty cool use. Again, here's where they're using in the coring for the interior of the boat. Similar here.
Deck.
Looks like they're using it for the the under part of the deck. Here's the transom getting glassed in. Looks like a stringer that they've gone through and used, and they've started to lay down the fiberglass over the top of it. Again, some supports. So this guy took the boat all the way down to the hull, and looks like he's coming back up with the stringers and all the coring out of Coosa.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can do with it for sure.
And then one other folder is the other here. So, one of the things that I've seen is a lot of the box trucks. You'll see the doors on the box trucks, or some of the floors start to get rotted out because they're just unfinished plywood. Coosa would be another really good application. Also you're seeing a lot of the RV, pardon me, the RV industry move over to a composite material, so that people down the line, if the camper gets wet or whatnot, and like Airstream, I think there's a huge community out there for Airstream people that they're trying to refinish these old Airstreams. It's become very popular. Coosa has been really on high demand for that. So we want to be a resource for you.
Part of the reason we were out of stock too much last year and have had to quadruple our inventory. Yeah.
Yep. So that's it. So kind of walking through. Let's see if we have any other questions. Looks like one more question here. Can you get it in bigger sheets? So, we sell the 4x8, but that's actually a really good question.
What happens when
It depends a little bit on what quantity you're looking for. So if you were looking for 50 sheets of this because you're a boat builder and you needed a wider transom, they do extrude custom width sheets. But generally for a one-off guy who needs 5 or less sheets, typically your 4x8 is your limiting factor, and so instead of trying to source a bigger sheet, you would do the puzzle piece or a lap joint like we talked about. But if you needed just a bunch for a specific application, Coosa can do custom extruded runs, and we have done that with them for a couple of specific applications.
And likewise, I mean, if you've got something to save money, similar to like the dock triangles that we've done before in the past, if you have a specific size that you don't want to do any fabrication on your end, just kind of drop in place. We actually had a customer overseas that recently we've done a quote for that was looking to replace like the patio, like a terrace patio for
Flooring,
an entire
right?
like an entire apartment complex. The floors just kept rotting, so they're going back in with Coosa. They did all of the testing that it would work, and they needed fixed sizes, so the contractor didn't have to buy these sheets and have off-fall of material. So they were able to just get a quote based off of, hey, Coosa, can you do this for us? They called us through. We were able to get a quote out to the customer, so that's an option as well.
But they needed hundreds of them, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, custom sizes, and we should add custom thicknesses there as well. So they can do custom thicknesses, on demand, but it really needs to be higher volume.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. So it looks like we don't have any other comments. Again, we know that this has really been a popular material here.
Yeah, let's keep the conversation going. I mean, I know we always say things like, "Hey, let us know what you want to hear next," but and this isn't meant to be comment bait. I want to know where you think Coosa maybe falls short that we didn't mention. We want to always be fair. This isn't a sales pitch. In many cases, plywood might make sense. Let's keep the conversation going. Where do we need to look at the nautical? In what cases does the nautical make sense versus the blue water?
Or
how
even
about
offering
Nitacor?
marine grade plywood,
Or
right?
marine grade plywood, yeah. Or where does Nitacor way better? Ask questions. Let's keep the conversation going and try to kind of be as helpful as we can to people who are looking to do these boat improvement projects and considering some of these different materials.
Yeah, and to kind of close things, I will say the same thing that I always say is And we've got a team of people over there that love talking to people about their boats, right?
what it's all about.
And even if it's not a boat, if it's something else that you're going to use it, they're very project-minded individuals that like to discuss solutions to problems that you're
Engineering
going to have.
focused, yeah.
Correct. So give us a call. We've got a team of people over there that we need you to keep busy. So call us. Let's ask questions. Go through anything that you have. Again, we really appreciate you coming by and taking a look at this video. If there's something that we left off or you want to see something else, as Andrew mentioned, make sure you comment below. We'd always love to do something in a segment like this that gets a lot of reviews and questions. We could always film a sequel,
yeah.
right, or a follow-up. So again, guys, thanks for stopping by today. We really appreciate you taking a look at the video. Take care.
Thanks, guys.